شریف ایران. من شهریار افشار هستم، میزبان شما در برنامه Politics 365. هر هفته ما یک گفتگوی جدید با شخصیت‌های برجسته سیاست، حقوق بشر، تجارت، تکنولوژی و اکتیویست‌های فعال در سراسر دنیا به توجه شما میرسانیم. اگر مایل هستین ما خوشحال میشیم پیامتون رو دریافت کنیم با تماس با 858 444 6506 یا info@politics365.com. با امید ایران آزاد بریم دنبال برنامه امروز. خوش آمدید دوستان به برنامه Politics 365. من شهریار افشار هستم، میزبان شما. امروز یک مهمان خیلی مهم به برنامه دوباره دعوت کردیم، یک کاندید برای رئیس جمهوری آمریکا، آقای رولن رابرتس II. ایشون یکی ریپابلیکن کاندیدیت فور US پرزیدنت هستش و به برنامه ما پیوسته که یه ذره درباره کاندیدیتیشون صحبت کنه و دیدگاهی که ایشون داره در مورد حوادثی که در ایران داره الان اتفاق میفته. Rollan Roberts, welcome to our program. Such an honor, great privilege to have you here to learn about your campaign, to help educate the Iranian American community about presidential politics, which has always been just a fascinating topic to me. 40 plus years I've been here. Every time I see a presidential candidacy and the way it comes together and the amount of money that goes into it and TV, media, so first, what I really wanted to do is make sure our community is aware of other candidates they don't always see on CNN every night, like yourself and others that we're reaching out to, but also to learn about your perspectives, why run, what do you see your path to success will be, what your platform is, and of course, we want to end with what your perspectives are about Iran, what's going on in Iran right now, and how you would address them as president. So with that, welcome to Politics 365.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be with you.
So tell us a little bit about your background, Rollan. How did you, what was your professional life and how did you decide to enter into politics?
Sure. Well, my professional background has been in corporate America, running companies since 2004, really. I was with a data security company, a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded firm, and then handled a data breach for them in 2006 and 2007. Went into more technology, software as a service, and hardware, software, and then became a CEO of a nutraceutical company, one of the largest manufacturing harvesters of blue-green algae in the world. And then went from there to starting my own enterprises, and have started several different companies, inventing, different products along the way. And and then promoting entrepreneurship, recognizing that was my pathway to freedom, personal freedom. Not obviously, I live in a free nation, free country, but I wanted that personal freedom. So that was my background prior to 2016. And things really changed in 2016. I was doing CEO entrepreneur cruises to help other people do it and grow. And at that time, I had just finished a stint with the hoverboard company, which was the best-selling product in the world of 2015. And so when my time there ended, literally the next day, I got an email from folks in Spain, and wanted me to come work with the top 20 startup companies in the world that they were bringing to the island of Menorca. And so that's while I was there, I met a liaison from the White House, and that's what began my foray into helping governments. When I got back, I was keynoted a Harvard event, Harvard University, for 130 world leaders, and literally 3 different countries before I got off the last step coming down wanted to have a work with us in some capacity. So that's how it started. Obviously, from there, I have helped on the U.S.-China trade war. I was actually speaking about the U.S.-China trade war and about intellectual property theft and the communist regime really in the Great Hall of the People to China's leadership, and in 2017. And then have been extensive in Africa ever since, including on the U.S. delegation to South Sudan.
Fantastic. I really applaud not only your entrepreneurial background, but the fact that you're helping other entrepreneurs realize their dream. It's nothing better than realizing the American dream. And as you know, Iranians love a good entrepreneur. I think that business brings a certain clarity to politics that is often lacking, right? When you're so hardcore ideological, left or right, it clouds your judgment, I think, and it's not good for the public. But when you bring the business clarity and objectivity to decision making, I think better decisions evolve from that. So your background certainly qualifies you for being a good leader of ideas and people to bring them to reality. So the decision to run is a big decision. It's personal, it's professional. You spoke to with your family. Hey, are you ready for this kind of coverage? What are my chances? I mean, now that you've declared, what is your process? How do you go about being a presidential candidate in a sea of candidates? How is your message going to be different from them?
Let me say, when I filed to run for the presidency, there were only two other presidential candidates. And at that time, we expected or even thought there would only be 7 or 8 total GOP candidates for president. And we announced on January 20th of this year. And so that's the mindset we went into it, that it was going to be a limited field. My perspective, I did not just sit back and do some massive calculation and data analytics saying, should I run? Normally, and I approach most every decision very data driven. That's what you do as a CEO. But this was a very unique circumstance, path for me. And I just felt a divine calling that this is what I'm supposed to do now. Call it an Abraham Isaac moment, but you go. You do not have to understand the end. You don't have to know how it all ends up. You just have to know you're supposed to obey and move forward. And that is what we did. We stepped out by faith to do this. Obviously, when my wife fainted at the press conference, we literally wanted to reevaluate, because even the next day we were going through her medical history with her family and saying, look, I love my wife. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize my family. And if there's a health issue that we need to be concerned about, I don't want a campaign, much less the pressures of a White House to cause problems physically for my family. And the answer resoundingly from everyone was absolutely not. We are all behind. We are all with. There's nothing to worry about. This was of the enemy. Just stay focused and move forward. And I'll tell you, that has continued to prove out time after time after time. So when you run a campaign this style, all the rules do not apply. And you know that from entrepreneurship. You have to know the rules, and then David doesn't beat Goliath. The little guy doesn't beat the little company doesn't beat the big company, playing by the big company's rules. And I'm applying the exact same strategy and method to this campaign and to this race that I would if I was Steve Jobs working in my mom's garage trying to start Apple. I would do it the exact same way. Sometimes the big purses, the big super PACs, having several $100 million sitting around, you aren't creative. It doesn't pull out the best in you. It doesn't pull out your best performance. It doesn't pull out the heart. You rely on your resources, just like big companies that rely on the finances. Whereas a young startup, they just have to. It's tenacity and it's determination, and so that's where we're coming from. But I'll tell you, I do believe we have a path, even with the data, when it comes to the Hispanic community in America, when it comes to the immigrant community in America, both from Africa, African immigrants, South America immigrants. I do believe that we have a pathway because of our program for legal citizenship and for illegal citizens in the United States, a way to fix that, solutions, which is what we do in business. We solve problems. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm trying not to just run on a fear-based campaign, but a solution-based campaign.
Right. No, I really appreciate that, and especially your last comment about a fear-based campaign, because I can tell you, better than anyone, one thing about American presidential politics and higher level politics is all about fear mongering, demonizing the other side, bringing down, which I think brings down the entire system.
Yes.
Because it doesn't really, if both are Americans and they generally want good things for America, when you're trying to, take pot shots at the other side for whatever reason, you bring all of us down. And it just lessens our position in the world when they see this much public infighting, especially with the big name candidates you see on CNN all the time, right? So again, your message of certainly faith-driven, I respect that, I really value that. I think it's a beautiful thing. Faith-driven is a very big thing that an individual decides to undertake, right? To put yourself out there, your family out there for criticism, for exposure, because you feel it's the best thing you can do with your life to bring people together.
And there's no retreating from that.
Right.
Once you've done it for the rest of your life, every position that you have for this campaign is permanent record.
Right, of course. And in this day and age, it's all digital media, right? So maybe we can turn to your larger, if you have, if you have had a chance to develop a foreign policy platform. Let's focus on the Middle East for a second. What are your thoughts? You're looking at a lot of events happening in the Middle East. There's been exchanges with Saudi Arabia. There's obviously that Gulf business. There's I'm not talking about the Persian Gulf. I'm talking about the Gulf. I guess intrusion of Saudi Arabian money into the PGA. That's interesting. There's other things going on, obviously, with Israel and Palestine, and of course, our favorite topic, Iran. So, in general, what is your perspective of events in the Middle East, and then we'll focus on Iran?
Certainly. Well, I can tell you that the Middle East dynamics, as everyone knows, have been complex for thousands of years. There's no 30-second, let's just do it this way and move on. What I'm focused on in a foreign policy in the Middle East, my foreign policy, is that I want to promote peace, I want to protect lives, and I want on my watch. That's what I want to do. And the reason is I don't want the U.S. overly interfering in matters in the Middle East. They are beyond, like I said, they are historic, right? It is they can be traced back from a spiritual nature. Many of these conflicts. So you don't go to that kind of a battle trying to just win with the physical wars of weapons. It's much deeper than that. There are ideological battles behind many of these conflicts. But what is interesting to me is all of the different alliances and how they float and vary frequently. So you talk with Iran and the challenges there with Saudi Arabia, and even the agreement that is put in place. Some question, but regardless, at least it was a temporary freeze on fighting, and that's not going to be a permanent hold. So yes, they're doing some proxy wars, and Yemen and Syria are still hotbeds for both of them to kind of fight without fighting. But I think ultimately what this is about is, many things, but business. There is the alliances with China and Russia, supporting Iran and their capabilities, both nuclear and others. And then you've got Saudi Arabia, who was, focused more on other alliances outside of China and Russia. So, and then all of that, against all of those, you have Israel. My perspective is that I would not put Iran. I do not want to go back into the Iran agreement, and I know that the current administration, pledged that in this last election. I would not, and he has not been successful in doing so. And ironically, neither side wants it. Iran doesn't want it, and America doesn't actually want it. He ran on it. Just because it was something doesn't mean sometimes nothing is better than something. And I do think that is probably where we are at the moment, because it does no good. And I'm not saying America always plays by the very thing it commits to by any stretch of the imagination. It's one of the reasons I'm running, because I think we're one of the most corrupt regimes on earth. We just do it better. And you understand what I'm saying by that. It's not as overt. It's not as in people's face. And then we act like we're the victims and everybody else is just committing these, horrible atrocities. But ultimately the challenge with Iran and several other countries, the Uyghurs and so forth, in China, but is human rights and protecting people. And so, at what point can you be a legitimate regime when you are oppressing your people? And Iran, especially, you've got I know that media would use the term hardliners, but so you have the hardliners, and then you have those who have been exposed to the rest of the world and are a lot more open-minded about not their faith. And that doesn't change. I think they're very committed to their faith regardless, but they aren't as oppressive, even to their own people.
Right. No, thank you so for that fantastic overlay of events in the Middle East and how human rights plays into it, and how human rights is really a tough topic for U.S. presidents, because, as you said, here we are, a beacon of hope and democracy in the world, and often, we're better at kind of hiding our own, corruption and difficulties, and we have certainly better press, better TV coverage. We're able to spin it in a favorable way, but as a beacon of hope and democracy, we are often forced to deal with regimes in the Middle East that are oppressing their own people, like Iran, and human rights immediately becomes an issue. Even if it's not a campaign issue, you just can't talk about Iran for 2 seconds, oil and not run into a severe human rights dilemma.
Right. And the challenge for America is that it doesn't, how do you hold the regime accountable without contributing to more human rights issues, such as what damage does sanctions cause? Where's that threshold where it penalizes the bad behavior, but then it starts hurting the people that we want to help?
Right. Oh, that's a fantastic and insightful analysis of what sanctions unfortunately do. 2 things you mentioned: the Iran deal and sanctions. The Iranian diaspora is very much in favor of both. In general, as you know, they want to hold the regime accountable, but governments throughout the world are having a difficult time reconciling that issue. The sanctions sometimes hurt the poor, innocent people that have no recourse, no ability to fight runaway inflation in Iran, no ability to circumvent the sanctions like the regime elements do. I always say sanctions usually hurt the regime in the way that instead of driving a Corvette, they have to drive a Ferrari. But they're not going to suffer. They're not going to say, "Oh, I'm going to lose my home." So it's a really tough thing. How do you hold them accountable? Sanctions is an inarticulate tool sometimes in American foreign policy, and something I've studied, I've spent a lot of time on, is if it was multilateral sanctions, where the whole world is China and Russia included, then you definitely will have a solid impact. But when we do unilateral sanctions, just the US, nobody else does it. Even the Iranian regime has said, kind of to your point, that they are experts at circumventing sanctions. They're experts at corruption. I mean, they could teach the world lessons in it. So in this last minute, Rollan, what parting message do you have for our listeners, for our audience, about the path forward? You got about 45 seconds.
Path forward, America needs God. That's why I'm running. The world is upside down, and right is wrong. Wrong is called right. And I want to do right by people, American citizens, and people of the world. I'm running on economy, national security, and family. We have great policies on all of those. I've already articulated them. I'm not waiting for consultants to tell us what the polls say they should be. I'm telling you how to make America and keep America the land of the free and the home of the brave. RollanRoberts.com is where we're at, and thank you for the time and being with you today. It's been great.
Thank you, Rollan, for that excellent synopsis and for being with us today. دوستان اگه میخواستین بیشتر از رولان رابرتس یاد بگیرین به وبسایت ایشون میتونید مراجعه کنین و با این وقتی که با ما گذاشتین سپاسگزارم. Thank you, Rollan.